So in today's warm-up, we're going to review a good many things from solving equations to slope to what do you remember about angles. So go ahead, give the warm-up a try, and then unpause the video and we'll go over the answers. So now that you've had a chance to try them, first one's your basic two-step equation. We're going to subtract or add -5 to each side, and that's going to give us 2x equaling 6. Divide each side by 2, and you end up with x equaling 3. To check it, we're going to plug it back into the equation. So everywhere we see x, we're going to plug in 3. Follow order of operations, so 6 plus 5 needs to equal 11. Those two things do equal 11, and we know that our answer checks. Remember that rate of change? That's a fancy word for slope. And a formula for slope is y minus y over x minus x. My minus signs look like little dots, but that's subtraction. Y minus y over x minus x. So -4 minus a -2 over -1 minus 3. Because I started with the -4 first, the -1 had to go first in the denominator of the fraction. Please make sure you change to plus the opposite, so plus +2 on the top and plus -3 on the bottom. That's going to give me -2 over -4. Two negatives go positive, and 2 over 4 reduces down to +1/2. Supplementary. Supplementary means that it makes a straight line. Straight lines add up to a total of 180 degrees. So we're going to take our total of 180 degrees and we're going to subtract the 45 for the measure of angle A. When we do that, we end up with 135 degrees, equaling our measure of angle B. Today we're going to be looking at reflections. And if you think about your reflection in the mirror, it's backwards. If you raise your right hand in the mirror, it looks like you're raising your left hand. And the same thing happens with reflections of shapes. Basically, it's going to be backwards, same shape, but it's going to be backwards depending on which line we reflect it over. And we basically are going to be reflecting only over the x and y axis. So as we go over the reflection, or the vocabulary, reflection again is your mirror image of the original figure. Okay, so it's going to take the original figure and it's basically just going to flip it over the line. The line of reflection, obviously, it's the line in which we're reflecting the figure over. For us, our line of reflection is only going to be one of two things. It's either going to be reflected over the x-axis or it's going to be reflected over the y-axis. And the reason we stay with only those two things is that way we only have two formulas that we need to concern ourselves with. But before we get into the formulas, we're going to go over example 1, and basically what we're looking at is we're looking at the reflection. Remember that the prime values, that's not what I wanted. The prime values, C prime, B prime, A prime, that's the new image. So our original figure was the triangle over here on the right hand side, and our mirrored image is this one over here on the left. Hopefully you can see that our line of reflection this time was the y-axis. It should look like the triangle on the right just flipped right over and made us the triangle on the left-hand side. Here we're looking at the same thing again. Our figure on the top, LMNO, that's our original figure. And then we have our prime figure down here in quadrant 3 in the lower left-hand corner. I'm hoping that it's easy to spot that our line of reflection this time was the x-axis. Just flipped right over. And notice, if you can, that this line ON is 1 block away from the y-axis on the top, and it's 1 block away from the y-axis on the bottom. It really does flip exactly. So the spacing is going to be the same between your new image and your mirrored. Now we're going to look at our formulas. And you are going to have to memorize the formula. So we're looking at the x-axis. The only thing that changes from the original to the image, so here's our image, here's our original, is the y-coordinate changes signs. So whatever axis you're flipping it over, the opposite coordinate changes signs. So if we're flipping it over x, the y-coordinate is going to change signs. And just like we were talking about, now we're going over the y-axis, so our x-coordinate is going to change. So for the y-axis, a reflection over the y-axis, your x-coordinate changes signs. For reflections over the x-axis, your y-coordinate changes signs. And it should make sense if you're looking at a graph, and I have a circle here and a circle here, and I'm going to flip it over the y-axis. I'm going from the negative x values over to the positive x values. So it should make sense that it's the x value changing and not the y, because my height of the figures is staying the same in both of them. Same sort of thing if I have a triangle up here and a triangle down here. Oh, that's not right. And my triangle down here. This time we reflected over the x-axis. And I went from the positive y values down to the negative y values. So again, it should make sense with the x-axis that it's your height value changing, so your y value. So what we're looking at here is we have a triangle, and it's giving us the 3 vertices, and it's saying it's reflecting over the x-axis. One of the best things you can do for yourself is as soon as you figure out what sort of transformation it's making, write yourself the formula so that you know. So in this case, because it's going over the x-axis, we have x comma negative y. So a prime is going to start as 5, 2. My y value only is going to change signs. So my new one is going to be 5, negative 2. So now we need to find b prime. B started at the point 1, comma 3. We're reflecting it over the x-axis again, so it's our y-coordinate that's going to change. We're going to end up with the point 1, negative 3. C prime, same deal, negative 1, comma 1. We're reflecting it over the x-axis, so our y-coordinate changes. And we get the new point, negative 1, negative 1. I'm going to trust that you can graph this on the coordinate plane, that we're okay with using our x and y values. We should be okay with that at this point. Same one here, except now we have a quadrilateral, so we have 4 of them. And again, we're still going over the x-axis. So that means that our y-coordinate is going to be the one that changes. So q prime, we start with negative 1, 1. Our y value is going to change, becoming negative 1, negative 1. We have r prime, which is 0, 3. Again, our y-coordinate is going to change, so 0, negative 3. We have s prime, which is 3, 2. Our y-coordinate is going to change, so 3, negative 2. And we have t prime, which is 4, 0. Our y-coordinate is going to change, and we end up with 4, 0. Remember that 0 doesn't really have positive or negative values, so 0 is just going to change 0. Now we're looking at over the y-axis. So for the y-axis, it's going to be our x value that changes. So negative x comma y. K prime started at 2, comma 3. We're changing our x value this time. So our new point is going to be at negative 2, positive 3. L prime starts at 5, 1. I'm changing my x-coordinate, so that's going to become negative 5, 1. M prime is at 4, negative 2. Again, changing my x-coordinate, so negative 4, negative 2. Then we have n prime. And n prime is at 1, -1. Changing my x coordinate. So -1, -1. And again, I'm trusting that we can graph these on the coordinate plane. Over to x, up to y. Same thing, we're still going over the y-axis, so that means my x value is going to change and my y value is going to stay the same. So x prime starts at -1, 2. I'm changing my x value, so it's going to be 1, 2 when it's all said and done. Y prime is at -2, 1. I'm sorry, y is at -2, 1. So y prime is going to change my x value. So that -2 is going to become +2, and the y coordinate of 1 stays the same. For z prime, the original point was at -1, -2. Changing my x coordinate, the -1 is going to go +1, and the y value of -2 will stay -2. I'd like you to try these two on your own. One's going over the y-axis, one's going over the x-axis, and then we'll come back and go over them. So now that you've had a chance to go over them, if we're reflecting over the y-axis, we're going to change x. If we're reflecting over the x-axis, we're going to change y. So p prime starts at 1, 5. We're going to change x. So that's going to give me -1, -5. Q prime is at 3, 7. Again, I'm going to change x. So it's going to end up at -3, 7. And R prime, R started at 4, -1. Going to change x. I don't want that mark there. So by changing x, it's going to give me -4, -1 as our R prime point. For 2, our triangle reflected over the x-axis. D is at -1, -1. We're changing the y value this time. So D prime is going to be at -1, +1. E is going to be at 2, -5. E prime, once we change the y value, is going to be at 2, +5. F is at 3, -2. When I change that y value, it's going to be at 3, +2. And again, hopefully you're able to graph these okay. Homework tonight is a worksheet. You should be able to find the worksheet on the website or underneath the homework calendar if you don't have it with you already. Give it a try, and if you have any questions, let me know.